pro-democracy groups are going to win, but it's very expensive in life. So I'm praying for a change of heart with the dictators.
Well, David, please stay with us for another segment. We want to talk about your work in Syria when we come back. And Bashar finally fled the country after a big rebel offensive. There are very few safe areas, and more than most, Christians are being targeted. How does it look on the ground there?
It looks bad. I'm here at a farmer's house. We call it the donkey house because during the time of ISIS, we were helping people fleeing, and there was a baby donkey next to its dead mother donkey. And my kid, Suzanne, who's here with me on this mission, adopted this donkey out in the middle of the desert. And finally, when we got done all the missions, we had to put the donkey somewhere because we went back to Burma. It's in this farmer's house. And I asked him, what do you think about what's happening now in Syria? And he said, ISIS is coming back. He made the sign like this, which means the long beards. And he said, I can't even put them in my minds. I can't even put my minds. Because what's happening now in Syria is you have the HTS, basically Al-Qaeda al-Nusra, and partly ISIS background, control Damascus and the western part of Syria. You have the Free Syrian Army / Syrian National Army supported by Turkey. These are other jihadis, many of them ISIS, attacking the Kurds. You got the Kurds surrounded pretty much. You have Turkey pushing the north, ISIS resurgent, and these other groups coming in. What's keeping this place relatively surviving right now here in northeast Syria, which also has Christians and Yazidis, is actually the American army. Not many of them, but just enough where there isn't a massive invasion. And so the American forces are not solving the problem here, but their presence creates a space where the people can solve the problem, where the Kurds can solve the problem, with the Christians and others. If the Americans leave, which is half of them already left, there was 2,000 here, about 1,000 have gone. If the rest leave, I think this will be a whirlwind of evil. And so I asked this farmer, I'm with him right now, his name's Muhammad. I said, what do you want to say to America? He said, please stay with us. If you don't stay with us, it'll be impossible. We will be slaughtered. He said, look what happened with the Alawites on the border. Thousands of people killed, even kids shot and killed because the new governments come in and they have a suit on, but they act just like ISIS. In fact, I was talking to a young lady. She said, you get on a bus now in Damascus, they've already partitioned it between men and women. The mosque partition says just like ISIS. Everything is forbidden. We won't accept it. But what are we going to do? I'm in northeast Syria right now, which is a Kurdish enclave.
Well, I don't have much access to Washington, but I have access to a group of people who will pray. You can tell your friends we are praying. If the reporting is anywhere close to correct, there's 600,000 people who've died there. 14 million have been displaced. Some drove to Lebanon and Turkey, others refugee camps in Jordan. But apparently there's a lot of people simply wandering the streets looking for food and water. It's 4 months since Assad left for Moscow. Are things getting any more stable on the ground?
I don't think so, sir. I think there's a veneer. There's a veneer of stability, and many Western countries are trying to reach out to the new government. And, we hope that there can be some accommodation. But as everyone here says, they just put a suit over their beliefs. The beliefs are the same as ISIS. Now, ISIS is fighting against this new government, even though a lot of them were ISIS themselves, because ISIS doesn't want this new government to talk to the West. And they want the real strict Islam. But everyone here believes that this government, which made its own constitution, which guarantees its own power with no elections for at least the first 5 years, is already a dictatorship. And one person said, Assad had the prisons in parts of the country. Now the whole country's a prison. You do anything, you're gone. And so there is in the sense of hot shooting war, there's less right now. That's true. That's dropped. Everybody's trying to see where things line up. Will the West stand with the Kurds and the Christians in the Northeast or not? Will the West try to protect Christians in the Western side? We don't know. And nobody knows. I don't think I've ever been here where things felt so unstable as right now. But my hope is that America and other countries will stand with the Kurds, stand with the Christians. It doesn't take a lot. A couple thousand troops who are glad to be here. I was a soldier. I wanted to do things like this, to free the oppressed, to stand with people. We willingly took the risk. That's why we joined the military. And so my prayer is that, we don't depend on America, we depend on God. But God uses people. And my prayer is America stands with their friends.
Well, my understanding is that even in the worst years of the fighting, the old city in Damascus was left nearly untouched. The worst damage was hours away in Aleppo and Homs. But we did read about one hopeful sign. the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization has gotten involved in trying to help preserve what's left of the country's historic cultural sites. Are they having any success in providing some protection and security for places or people?
I have not. I don't know because I'm not on the Western side. When it comes down to real dangers and threats, I've not seen the UN able to stop anybody. And I hope they're able to do something good in the West. But they certainly didn't stop the Alawites from getting slaughtered. And that's an ongoing event. So I pray that it's going to take more than the UN. It's going to take real power, people like who can execute real power. Right now, that's the U.S. government. That's countries like in NATO. And again, we don't have to fight a lot here. You just stand here. The Kurds will do their part. And the western side of Syria, that is a really tough one, Alan, because these are ex-Al-Qaeda people. They haven't really changed. You watch the president. He won't even shake a lady's hand. So, I hope he changes, but we haven't seen that yet.
Well, David Eubank, thank you for your time. You are a brave warrior, and we pray for you and your teams wherever they may be. I hope you'll stay in touch and keep us updated on your progress.
Thank you, and I'll add this. I don't have time for it, but one reason the Western countries are even talking to this new regime in the west side of Syria is because of Iran. One positive thing is this new regime is anti-Iran. So I think that's the kind of balancing act the U.S. is in also.
Well, at the end of the day, we trust God to make a way.
Yes. Thank you for that, and we love you all. And please give a big hug to your dad for me.
I'll do it. Thank you, David. In a moment, your emails, and later, my thoughts on the passing of Pope Francis and the massive turnout to say goodbye.
Right on down to district and even county judges. Earlier today, the FBI arrested Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan for allegedly helping an illegal alien evade immigration authorities. Again, folks, this is a judge who, according to the FBI, intentionally misdirected federal agents away from a man they were trying to take into custody at her courthouse. It's insane. So is the case of former New Mexico magistrate judge Joel Cano. On Thursday, Cano and his wife were arrested for allegedly harboring in their home an illegal alien who's a member of the notorious Venezuelan criminal gang Tren de Aragua. President Trump recently designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, Cano and Dugan may be extreme cases, but the bottom line here is that judges who are not even on the federal level are making rulings that have national implications. They're rogue activists who want to overstep their bounds and stop Trump at all cost. I believe Congress is going to have to step in here and put a stop to this revolt. That includes judges trying to block President Trump's moves to stop transgenders from serving in the military and men from playing women's sports. Defeating gender madness that targets our kids is a crucial part of making America sane again. Coming up next, we'll talk to a brave young woman who survived the transgender cult and is now sounding the alarm. And it all starts now. She's a former trans kid turned fearless truth teller, a bold voice rising up for this generation, exposing the sinister agenda that's infiltrating our schools, our healthcare system, and our culture, all under the deceptive label of so-called gender-affirming care. Chloe Cole is on a mission. She's here with us to share her journey and remind us why we cannot afford to stay silent and sit on the sidelines in the face of evil. Chloe, great to see you. Number one, thank you for all you're doing. Number two, take us a bit through your personal journey. You start to have gender confusion at the age of 9. You start to transition at the age of 12. Tell us how this all started. Take us a bit through your journey.
So throughout a lot of my childhood, in some ways, I was very much a stereotypical girly girl. Especially when I was very young, I loved playing with Bratz, Barbie dolls. I loved my sisters play dress up with me, but I also felt like I really closely aligned with the boys at school and with my older brothers. And in a lot of ways, I found them a lot more relatable. I guess in some ways you could consider me to be a tomboy as well. And this is something that I used to take a lot of pride in, that I used to really enjoy until I started to hit puberty, which happened a little bit earlier for me. And with that came a lot of changes in my social life and especially with my body. And I really, for a lot of those post-puberty years, I just didn't really feel very comfortable in my skin. Eventually, I started to think, well, maybe I just would have been happier if I were like my older brothers and I never had to go through this. And maybe if I were born a boy, I would have been a much happier person. I learned about the transgender community through social media initially when I got my first phone when I was about 11 or 12. And I started to actually believe that I was a young man. And when I told my mom and dad about this, they weren't really sure exactly how to respond to this, but they took me to therapy in hopes that I would be helped through these feelings. But they never believed that I was transgender. They never believed that I was a boy. They knew that I was their beautiful little girl, but the doctors did not believe that. And they had only affirmed me through this path of eventually pushing us through the medical system. And I had gone through the process of medical transition between the ages of 12 to 16.
Wow. And Chloe, again, as you said, the doctors, there were adults in your years saying, yeah, they were affirming this and saying, yes, you are a boy, that you were born in the wrong body, essentially.
It felt like the focus of treatment was just what I wanted. They were willing to give it, but there never was a focus on what I might have really needed, which I think looking back on it, what I really needed to be told was, no, you're not a man. You're never going to be a young man, but you are beautiful the way that you are. But these adults who were supposed to help me and my parents through this time had only said, yes, you are a young man, and we're going to make sure that your parents are going to go along with this, and you are going to get whatever you want, even at the cost of eventually my health, me going through a healthy adolescence socially and physically. And at 13 years old, I was put on my first few treatments, which was the puberty blockers, which they used a chemical castration drug called Lupron to suppress my puberty and my body's hormones, and then testosterone just a few months afterward. And at 15 years old, I underwent my first and only surgery. I had a double mastectomy to remove my breast off of my body before detransitioning at 16, because I realized that not only that I regretted all this, but it was also completely unnecessary, that my body and me being a woman never was a problem in the first place.
You were perfect how God made you, Chloe, and eventually you realized that and you detransitioned, and now you are an advocate for sanity, I would say, against this madness and for kids. You've testified and you want Congress to essentially pass a bill banning so-called gender-affirming surgeries on kids, on minors. About a minute left. Tell us a little bit more about your efforts on Capitol Hill and beyond.
Yes, I've been speaking out about my journey since I was 17 in hopes that I could help anybody who may be going through this, whether it be through the detransition process themselves, or if they're seeing this with a family member of their own, a child, and also speaking on legislation to effect change on this issue in all across all 50 states. And I think federally we need to make an effort to get rid of this treatment for children completely, because no child deserves to believe that they were born in the wrong body, and every child deserves a chance to grow up with their body fully intact and to be able to experience adulthood to its fullest.
Chloe, well said. And there's so much more to the story, by the way. We're just scratching the surface here. Your faith grew through this. A lot more to talk about with Chloe Cole. Folks, you can check her out on X, across social media. Chloe, thank you for everything you are doing. God bless you. Keep up the great work, Chloe. We'll see you again soon. And coming up next, we're talking with Chloe about making America sane again. What about making America healthy again? We've got one of the architects of the MAHA movement with us next. Stick around.
I'm Bear Grylls, inviting you to join the adventure of a lifetime. Check out Mercy Ships, an incredible mission that brings hope and healing to the world.
Around the globe, millions suffer without essential medical care. Mercy Ships answers this need. Our hospital ships bring free, life-changing surgeries to some of the poorest parts of the world. Nearly 120,000 surgeries to date, serving over 50 countries and impacting over 2.5 million lives. Volunteers are the heart and soul of Mercy Ships, uniting their skills and compassion to make a difference. Now you can be part of this incredible adventure. Whether you're a doctor, engineer, cook, or simply someone with a heart to serve, you can bring hope and healing to the world's most vulnerable.
Visit mercyships.org and find out how you can be part of changing so many lives.
ATBN family, Eric Stakelbeck here. As you know, we are living in uncertain times with inflation, stock market volatility, and recession warnings. Analysts are urging Americans to get prepared right now. That's why you should strongly consider gold and silver to help protect your retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks. Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend to my friends. They're giving away a free wealth protection guide to TBN viewers, so give them a call right now.
Call now, 866-339-3319 for your free information kit to learn how you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or 401k, and how you can even purchase precious metals for delivery direct to your home. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews and millions of dollars in trusted transactions, and you can get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. Just call 866-339-3319 or text Eric to 50505.
America is the sickest industrialized nation in the world. How is this possible? How is the world's most powerful nation a medical train wreck? Well, it didn't happen overnight, but thankfully, there's now a growing pushback against our broken health system. At the heart of this revolution is the Make America Healthy Again movement, MAHA, led by Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and championed by our next guest. Del Bigtree has been on the front lines of the battle for medical truth and transparency for years. He's a CEO of MAHA Action and a powerful voice for freedom, and he joins us now. Del, great to see you. Hey, how is the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And the MAHA movement is alive and well. I think it's one of the most powerful movements right now in the nation. It was instrumental in shifting this election, I think, bringing more votes to President Trump, not just so that Trump could, win the election, but also to just sweep and get the mandate that he now has across America with the majority vote. And that vote was made up by what we call MAHA moms, all of these moms that heard Robert Kennedy Jr. speaking about the chemicals and the dyes that were in our food. For instance, a bowl of Fruit Loops here in America has toxic chemicals that are illegal and not in the Fruit Loops being made by Kellogg's for Europe and other countries. Why are we getting toxic chemicals in America that Kellogg's can already make the product without them in other countries? It's those types of stories that brought people to the voting booth, and it's the energy that's energizing this country. And I would say what we're seeing is people are engaged in the concept of health because of the Make America Healthy Again movement like we've never seen, but they're also engaged in the politics around health, which is really helping Robert Kennedy Jr. Passing so many great initiatives right now as we speak.
Yeah, it's really a revolution, Del, and it's long overdue. RFK Jr. said that we have a healthcare system that's focused on managing sickness and disease and not preventing it. Tell us more about that. Break that down a bit. Why would that be the stance to manage sickness? Shouldn't the goal to be eradicate sickness or prevent it in the first place?
Well, one of the things we're looking at, what makes the pharmaceutical industry more money? Cures and getting back to the root cause and figure out, can we keep you from getting sick? Once we cure you, are you on drugs the rest of your life? Are we just managing that sickness? I think the problem with our system is it's been run by an industry that makes the most money off of the sick people. And as we've said, we've gone, as you pointed out, we're the sickest nation in the industrialized world. We only had 12.8% of our population back in the 1980s when I was in high school. 12.8% of our kids had a chronic disease, which is either a neurological or an autoimmune disease. In just 40 short years, really, now in 2025, that rate has skyrocketed to nearly 60% are chronically ill, meaning they have a disease they will most likely have the rest of their lives. And look at cancer. Cancer rates are higher than they've ever been before. No matter how many dimes you put in the bucket, no matter how many car washes you pay for and celebrate and try to fund cancer research, there's more and more cancer. There's more and more heart disease. Everywhere we look, we're dying now at younger and younger ages here in America. So we're seeing the great, success that we had in our health system. It is now turning the corner and it is going bad. I think a big part of that is the focus has been on more and more drugs, as Robert Kennedy Jr. is saying, just placating or covering the disease or treating the disease so that we can manage it instead of getting to the root cause of the problem. That's the giant shift right now. He just 80,000 people, of the 82,000 people at HHS, he's getting rid of the culture that just wants to make more drugs that then add to more side effects and never get to the problem. Now what he wants to do is take all of these incredible science bodies with his remaining 62,000 employees and say, we're going to focus on finding what the root cause is of cancer. What's the root cause of heart disease? What's the root cause of autism, asthma, ADD, ADHD, all of these things that are plaguing our nation and our children. You're going to see results very quickly, I assure you.
Yeah, Del, well said, and great point. Look, autism, ADD, there's been an explosion in this in the past few decades alone. Number one, how does that happen? And number two, how corrupt is our healthcare system, the pharmaceutical companies? You're uncovering a lot. You've worked closely, obviously, with RFK Jr., worked on his campaign, but you guys are really uncovering in the MAHA movement some serious, serious issues that affect every American.
When you look at autism, this was an issue that had a rate of about 1 in 10,000 in the 1960s and 70s. It is now 1 in 34. It's more prevalent in boys, so that's the boys and girls number. If you just look at boys, it's about 1 in 22 boys is now being diagnosed with autism. 77% of our children cannot pass the health exam to get into our military. We are on the verge of not being able to mount a standing army because our children are so sick. That makes this a national security issue now, which is why President Trump is taking it so seriously. How did we get here? Well, people will say to me, Del, how do you know it's the vaccines? How do you know it's not the fluoride that's in our water? How do you know it's not the 5G cell phones that we have to the sides of our heads all day long? How do you know it's not the herbicides and the pesticides like glyphosate that we know causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma being sprayed over 90% of our crops in America? How do you know it's not the hormones and the things that are being injected into the meat supply that we have? How do you know it's not, the pollution in our air? And what I say to people is, look, we don't know exactly what it is. We know that we're sick. We know it has to be the toxins in our environment that are making us sick because genetics don't change in 40 years. You cannot have a genetic epidemic. You can't go from 12% chronic illness to 60% of us having a chronic disease in 40 years because our genetics that we evolved or devolved, if you will, and lost the strength inside of our species. Clearly, that has to be environmental toxins. And so what I say is, it may be any one of those things or all of them together, but let's make it perfectly clear. Every single thing we just talked about, whether it's the beef supply, the vegetables that are poisoned, the water, all of those things and products that are doing that to us were approved and said to be safe by the Health and Human Services, FDA, CDC, NIH, our regulatory agencies. This system has got to change, and that's what Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing right now.
Yeah, Del, he's a man on a mission. So are you. Number one, thank God you're doing this. Number two, you're not only making America healthy again, you're making America sane again. Folks, more with Del Bigtree after the break. What about our obesity epidemic, especially among young people, and much more with Del Bigtree? We got to break down why the World Health Organization is hazardous to America's health. Find out why next. Don't move.
Such a sad situation when you see a person that has lost everything that they've worked for all their life.
It's so hard to make sense of the chaos. Everything is just gone.
It's just devastation in every direction I can turn.
Yes, there are storms in life, but God will take us through those storms if we put our faith and trust in His Son, Jesus Christ.
When I saw those orange shirts coming to the property. I've never experienced God's love like that.
It's a blessing just to see how lives are being changed through a simple act of just picking something up and sharing a hug and giving a Bible and smiling and praying with them.
Thank you so much.
Samaritan's Purse is in for the long haul, taking something that's real bad and turning it into something good.
You can help bring hope. Visit SamaritansPurse.org/TBN.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? You look amazing. You have a glow about you. I've been using multi-collagen now for a little over 2 years. I just put a scoop in my coffee every morning, and some days I'll even do 2 because it's so good. Scowls and crow's feet and things that nature puts in us. I'd like to slow that down as much as possible.
Call the number on your screen and get a free bottle with your preferred customer order. A value of over $50 free.
When you call and purchase, you are helping to spread the gospel around the world by supporting TBN.
Welcome back to Stackleback Tonight. We're talking to Del Bigtree, the CEO of Maha Action. Folks, from broken science to the fight for medical freedom, the truth is under fire, but Del and the Maha movement are fighting back for sanity. Del, I think about as a kid, growing up and a teenager, in my early 20s even,